Hi there! Welcome to the National Improving Writing Programme CLPL. Today we're going to look at the quality improvement tool of a run chart. So we're going to have to think today about what we measure and when we measure it, and then to look at run chart rules which will support you to know if interventions have made a difference. So the purpose of a run chart is just to collect and analyse data over time. And there's a few key takeaways for today's session. So here's takeaway number 1, that data for improvement is to learn what difference changes make. It's therefore imperative that we measure the right things. So let's think about why a pilot might need data and what kind of data they might need. You can see that this is all pretty useful stuff. How fast the plane is flying, which direction it's heading in, how the oil pressure is doing, and so on. It's all linked to purpose, in this case to fly the passengers safely to their destinations. The method by which the information is relayed to the pilot is useful as well. The dials are capable of indicating change in real time, enabling our pilot to respond accordingly and make adjustments if necessary. But what if we use the wrong measures? Here are the same set of dials, this time configured to measure the wrong things. Using the wrong measures means it's impossible to establish if you're achieving your purpose. There's no point counting the wrong things just because they are easy to count. Or what if we measure the right things but the wrong way? Here are the binary comparison version of the cockpit dials. Again, all the same measures as in the original configuration, but presented in a way that really can't tell you anything useful at all. And what if we just didn't measure anything? Well, we'd be flying blind, and I definitely wouldn't want to be a passenger on that plane. We need project measures to give us feedback about whether the changes we are making are helping us to improve. We need to measure the right thing in the right way at exactly the right time. If we leave it to the end of the project, we don't have the opportunity to make any changes. This might sound really straightforward, and I'm sure you've come across data that possibly wasn't useful in your context. So we need to think about takeaway 2. If we don't measure data over time, we might jump to the wrong conclusions. Here's an example of this. Here's a bar chart demonstrating the percentage of children that achieved writing success before and after a change. Does this show improvement? Did the change result in improvement? Whilst it does appear to show improvement, it doesn't tell us the whole story. Data can look good and often better when looked at this way, but might mask the areas that are not really performing. We can often under or overreact to the single or most recent data point. This has the same data and the same before and after as on the previous chart. Do you think the change has led to the improvement? Well, there has been improvement, but the change probably has not been influential in the performance, as things were moving in the right direction anyway. And again, the same before and after as on the bar chart. The change here might have had an impact initially, but it didn't last and it dipped again and then picked up again, and that variation needs to be explored. And here is a writing run chart capturing data over time. This provides us with detailed insight into the natural variation and allows us to see clearly what is happening day to day for this class. It allows us to test different change ideas and to be clear on what led to the improvement. Had we taken a pre-assessment at the beginning of the project and again on the 1st of February, we might have wrongly concluded that we had reached improvement when in fact this was not achieved until some weeks later, as indicated by that red bubble. It is completely normal for data to have variation, and collecting data over time can allow us to distinguish between normal variation and when something has changed. It allows us to see whether changes have delivered sustainable improvements. So takeaway 3 tells us that if you measure daily, you learn daily. If you measure weekly, you learn weekly. And if you measure monthly, you learn monthly. So often teams are measuring the correct thing, but not the correct frequency. Reflecting back to the cockpit examples, how often you collect the data is so important. Should it be hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly? And this is where improvement data can take a nosedive. If you have the correct measure, but you're only measuring weekly, but introducing changes daily to your data, the data you get will not provide you the detail that you require to learn. If you measure daily, you will quickly learn on whether the changes are delivering improvement or whether you need to tweak your approach somewhat. This data is powerful as it's informing your practice and informing your next move. So how often you measure depends on your aim and what you need to know. So in this case, we know that what we're changing is using the writing change bundle. And you'll have seen from all the previous charts the importance of implementing the full bundle, because we know that it won't be until the full bundle is in place that you will get that improvement. So, a run chart displays data over time. Your x-axis is the frequency, your y-axis is what you're measuring, and it has a median line. Your chart needs at least 10 data points to apply a median line. And once you have that median line, you can apply a set of probability-based rules to help you establish whether your data is showing signals of non-random variation. There are 4 rules in total, but we're only going to look at using 3 of them for the National Writing Programme. So here is Rule 1. The first run chart rule is a shift. This is 6 consecutive points either above or below the median line. Points that fall exactly on the median line do not add to or break a shift. So you skip the values that fall on that median and you continue counting. In the National Improving Writing Programme, we're looking for a shift to be above the median line, meaning we're seeing an increase in pupils achieving the aim. Rule 2 is a trend. And a trend is a signal of improvement, but not necessarily of sustainable improvement yet. So where you see a trend, you would want to take a closer look at what has led to the increase. If the value of 2 or more consecutive points is the same, you only count the first point and you ignore any repeating values. So repetitive values do not make or break a trend. And finally, Rule 4 is the astronomical data point. It's a possible signal that something non-random is in your data and warrants a much closer look. It's essential that you know the context behind the data point to know whether or not it was a signal of improvement. Did you do something different that day that led to the non-random point? And a really good way to make sure you understand what's happening there is to annotate your run chart so you can see what was going on. Remember, run charts are your friend. It's the run chart that will help you to know if the changes that are being introduced are leading to an improvement or not. Data for improvement should be reviewed every time a new point is gathered, and this should inform whether you continue doing something or whether you need to tweak your practice. Often we can fall into bad habits of collecting data but not taking the time to use the data to inform the next day's practice. When this happens, our improvement data is at risk of falling into quality assurance data and not data for learning. It's our data that sets the pace for our improvement work, telling us when we need to tweak things, or indeed when we've been successful and then can move to the next aspect of writing. So here's your final takeaway. Remember that Rule 1 is a shift, Rule 2 is a trend, and Rule 4 an astronomical data point. If there's any other further support you would like with this, then please do not hesitate to get in touch with your local leads. Thank you.